Outside this secure commercial entrance, a man pushes a heavy sliding gate as the large iron frame suddenly slips from its track and begins to fall. Large sliding structures depend on properly aligned tracks and secure support systems to remain stable. Inside this unfinished brick structure, a worker swings a heavy sledgehammer at the concrete ceiling as the overhead section suddenly becomes unstable. Striking structural or load-bearing materials from directly underneath can create a serious collapse hazard. Demolition specialists should work from a safe position using appropriate tools and controlled methods. Site planners must verify that overhead materials are properly supported and establish exclusion zones before removal begins. In this outdoor storage yard, a man walks near a towering stack of large sacks as the uneven load suddenly shifts, sending several heavy bundles toward the ground. High vertical storage requires a stable foundation and careful stacking to remain secure. When heavy goods are improperly arranged, an uneven load can shift unexpectedly and affect surrounding materials. Falling cargo can quickly create a serious hazard for anyone working nearby, particularly around tall stacks with limited visibility. Proper stacking, securing, and separation from storage areas are essential for maintaining a safe working environment. Warehouse personnel should secure tall or unstable materials using appropriate restraints and stacking methods. Outside on this leaf-covered concrete driveway, a man climbs an aluminum ladder as the unanchored feet begin sliding backward across the surface. Ladders require a stable footing and proper support to remain secure during use. Smooth or slippery surfaces can reduce traction, allowing the base to shift as weight is applied higher up the ladder. A moving ladder can quickly affect the climber's balance and create a serious fall hazard. Property maintainers should secure ladder bases according to the manufacturer's instructions before climbing. Clear leaves, moisture, and other slippery materials from the setup area, and confirm that the ladder is stable before use. At this dusty lifting site, a worker guides a massive suspended metal cage from below as the hoisting system suddenly loses control and the load begins to descend. Suspended heavy objects contain significant potential energy while elevated. If a lifting system fails or loses control, the load can move downward unexpectedly and create a serious hazard beneath the hoist. Standing directly below suspended equipment leaves workers exposed to the load's potential movement path. Safe lifting practices therefore require workers to remain outside designated exclusion zones and guide suspended materials from a safe position. Rigging specialists should use suitable taglines to guide suspended materials from a safe distance. On this river crossing, a truck carries a massive metal frame onto a temporary bridge as the structure suddenly begins to buckle beneath the load. Temporary bridges depend on carefully calculated load limits and properly maintained support systems. When a heavy vehicle exceeds the structure's rated capacity, excessive stress can affect the bridge deck, joints, and supporting members. A compromised bridge can become unstable without providing a safe route for the vehicle to continue. Civil engineers must calculate and verify load limits before authorizing heavy crossings. Transit operators should confirm bridge conditions and joint connections and use only routes approved for the vehicle's weight and dimensions. Across this active industrial yard, a worker rides atop a manual transport jack as an unexpected shift sends him forward. Manual handling equipment is designed to move materials, not transport people, and typically lacks the stability and rider controls needed for safe personal transport. Riding on a narrow rolling frame can make balance difficult, especially if the wheels encounter an obstruction or suddenly stop. Floor monitors should ensure workers walk beside or operate rolling equipment as intended. Safety controllers should strictly prohibit riding on manual lifting devices and reinforce proper equipment use procedures. High above this deep extraction well, two workers stand on a suspended metal walkway as the supporting structure suddenly shifts, leaving the platform unstable. Elevated industrial walkways depend on secure structural connections and properly installed support systems. If a temporary walkway loses support, the platform can move unexpectedly and create a serious fall hazard for anyone on it. Workers operating above open shafts require reliable fall protection systems and properly inspected access equipment. A secure walkway alone should never replace the required personal protection when working at height. Rigging inspectors must thoroughly verify temporary walkway joints and support connections before granting access. Workers operating above open shafts should use approved personal fall arrest systems connected to suitable anchor points. High above this open-air exhibition park, a performer balances along a thin suspended wire as a sudden loss of footing turns the routine into a serious fall hazard. Working at significant height leaves very little room for balance errors. Performing without an appropriate fall protection system can allow a minor misstep to become a dangerous fall. Once balance is lost, a person may have limited ability to regain a secure position. Proper anchorage, suitable safety equipment, and carefully positioned protection systems are essential for aerial performances and other elevated activities. At this busy property entrance, a man opens an iron gate for an arriving transport truck as a loose wooden support beam shifts unexpectedly overhead. Improvised wooden structures can become unstable when exposed to movement or vibration. Operating a connected gate or barrier may disturb poorly secured materials above or nearby. If a heavy timber moves from its resting position, it can fall unexpectedly and create a serious hazard for anyone within the area. Site directors should securely anchor temporary timbers using appropriate structural brackets and supports. Delivery coordinators should halt vehicle movement until overhead areas have been inspected and confirmed clear of potential falling object hazards. Inside this spacious cafeteria, a man sits on the top of a folding stepladder as the frame suddenly becomes unstable and collapses beneath him. Folding ladders rely on properly engaged hinges and stable positioning to support the user. Standing or sitting on the highest cap can raise the center of gravity and make the ladder unstable. Excessive weight or movement can cause the frame to shift unexpectedly, creating a serious fall hazard. Using the ladder according to its design position and weight limits helps maintain stability during elevated work. Facility technicians should keep both feet on the designated steps and never sit or stand on the top cap. On this neighborhood clearing project, a compact loader hoists a large tree trunk as the mechanical grapple suddenly separates from the lifting assembly. Operating lifting machinery beyond its rated capacity can place excessive stress on structural components. If the load exceeds the equipment's limits, lifting arms, connections, or attachments may fail unexpectedly. Operators must determine the weight of timber and confirm that it is within the machine and attachment's rated capacity before lifting. In this crowded parking zone, a heavy transport truck reverses through a tight space as its rear corner strikes a utility column, destabilizing the structure. Reversing large vehicles through confined areas creates significant blind spots and clearance risks. If a vehicle contacts a structural column, the impact can damage the support and affect the stability of nearby structures. A compromised column may cause materials or sections of the structure to shift unexpectedly, creating a serious hazard for workers and pedestrians nearby. Transit navigators should use trained spotters to monitor rear clearances continuously. On this active building site, a heavy crane suspends a massive concrete slab as the steel boom suddenly shows signs of structural failure. Overloading lifting equipment can place structural components under stresses beyond their engineered limits. If a crane boom or other critical component fails, the suspended load and equipment may move or fall unexpectedly. This can create a serious falling object hazard across a wide area around the crane. Proper load calculations, equipment inspections, and controlled exclusion zones are essential whenever heavy materials are being lifted. Lift operators must accurately confirm load weights and equipment capacities before moving heavy panels. Ground spotters should establish wide exclusion zones around active hoisting paths and keep all personnel clear of suspended loads. Deep inside this massive storage facility, an employee walks down a narrow aisle as the towering metal shelves suddenly begin to shift, affecting the surrounding storage units. Overloading tall storage frames can place excessive stress on their structural supports. If one section becomes unstable, Its movement may affect adjacent shelving and cause stored materials to shift or fall. In a narrow aisle, falling inventory and damaged shelving can quickly restrict access and create a serious hazard for workers nearby. Maintaining rated load limits and regularly inspecting storage systems are essential for safe warehouse operations. Facility inspectors should regularly assess columns, connections, and shelving components for damage or signs of instability. On this street excavation site, a worker stands near an active excavator as the soil along the trench edge suddenly gives way beneath him. Heavy excavation equipment can affect the stability of surrounding soil, particularly near open trench edges. As soil is removed, nearby ground may lose support and become unstable. Standing too close to an excavation can therefore create a serious fall or ground collapse hazard. Because soil conditions can change unexpectedly, workers should remain behind established boundaries and follow the site's excavation safety procedures. Site surveyors must establish safe boundaries away from active digging zones. Ground controllers should stop machinery and clear the area whenever workers approach unstable trench edges. At this outdoor bricklaying site, laborers work beside a tall earthen retaining barrier as the unsupported structure suddenly begins to crumble. Temporary masonry and earth structures require proper support and bracing to remain stable. If the base becomes weakened, the surrounding material can shift or collapse unexpectedly. Falling bricks and soil can create a serious hazard for workers positioned nearby, particularly around unreinforced boundaries. Establishing clear separation and using appropriate support systems are essential when working near temporary retaining structures. Site directors should provide suitable bracing for temporary earthworks and retaining structures. Ground teams must maintain wide clearance zones around unreinforced boundaries and restrict access until the area has been properly assessed. Inside this moving transport cabin, a driver travels down the highway as an unrestrained passenger is thrown forward during a sudden stop. High-speed travel creates significant forward momentum for everyone inside a moving vehicle. When the vehicle brakes abruptly, restrained occupants move with the vehicle, while unrestrained passengers can continue moving forward. This sudden change in motion can cause a passenger to lose balance and make contact with the vehicle's interior. Proper restraint systems are essential for keeping occupants secure and reducing the risk of injury during unexpected braking or changes in speed. Transit operators must verify that all occupants are properly secured with the appropriate seatbelts or restraint systems. On this home's entrance porch, a man adjusts an elevated climbing frame while standing above it as the upper section suddenly disconnects, making the structure unstable. Adjusting an extension mechanism while the equipment is supporting a person can interfere with its locking system. Manipulating upper sections under load may cause connecting pins or locks to disengage unexpectedly. If the frame separates or shifts, the user can quickly lose balance and fall. Height adjustments should always be completed from a stable position on the ground, following the equipment manufacturer's instructions. Independent workers should inspect and securely engage all extension locks before climbing and confirm the equipment is stable before use. Inside this commercial bakery, a worker reaches into a running industrial dough mixer as the rotating mechanism suddenly creates an unexpected movement hazard. Rotating mixer components can generate significant mechanical force and create serious entanglement hazards. Reaching into an open mixer while it is operating exposes workers to moving shafts, arms, and other internal components. A hand, tool, or loose clothing can become caught unexpectedly, making it difficult to move away safely. Access to moving parts should therefore be prevented while equipment is energized or in motion. Culinary operators must isolate and verify that all moving parts have completely stopped before cleaning, scraping, or reaching inside the mixer. On this open residential terrace, a man raises an aluminum ladder as an electrical arc suddenly flashes near overhead power lines. Conductive ladders can create a serious electrical hazard when used near energized overhead lines. Electricity can arc across a gap without direct contact, particularly when equipment is raised too close to power infrastructure. An unexpected electrical event can cause a worker to lose control of the ladder and create additional fall hazards, especially when working near an elevated edge. Property overseers must establish safe clearance zones around overhead power lines. Task directors should use non-conductive equipment where appropriate and confirm required electrical clearances before beginning elevated work. Inside this busy neighborhood pub, a patron walks through the front entrance as an exposed basement opening creates an unexpected hazard. Leaving a floor opening unguarded in an active walkway creates a serious fall hazard. People entering a building may naturally focus on their surroundings rather than looking for unexpected openings underfoot. Without a secure barrier or visible warning, an exposed cellar access point can be difficult to identify in time. Proper guarding, lighting, and controlled access are essential wherever floor openings are present in public or work areas. Tavern operators must install sturdy barriers and clear warning signs around all exposed floor openings. Inventory coordinators should close or secure subfloor access points immediately after retrieving stock. Inside this modern corporate entrance, an officer closes a towering transparent barrier as the large structure suddenly separates from its support and begins to fall. Large entry structures depend on properly maintained mounting brackets, tracks, and support systems to remain secure during movement. If an overhead connection fails, the frame can detach unexpectedly and create a serious falling object hazard. Because large panels are heavy and difficult to control manually, anyone standing within their potential movement path may have limited time to respond safely. Regular inspection and prompt isolation of damaged equipment are essential. Building overseers should routinely inspect overhead mounting brackets, tracks, and other structural connections for signs of wear or damage. Across this busy freight yard, a transport truck carries a towering container as a sharp turn causes the elevated load to shift sideways. Transporting tall freight raises the vehicle's center of gravity and can affect its stability. During a sharp turn, lateral forces can cause an elevated load to shift and may increase the risk of the vehicle leaning or overturning. Once a load begins moving sideways, its weight can make the situation difficult to control. Freight dispatchers should secure tall cargo on suitable low flatbed platforms designed for the load. Fleet operators should reduce speed appropriately and take wide, controlled turns when transporting elevated or oversized shipments. Inside this active workspace, two workers lift a large flat screen from separate folding stepladders as the uneven setup suddenly becomes unstable. Balancing wide loads across separate temporary steps can create significant instability. When workers move simultaneously at height, uneven weight distribution can place sideways pressure on the equipment. Folding stepladders are not designed to function as a shared platform for oversized loads, and movement can cause them to shift unexpectedly. This creates a serious fall and equipment hazard for everyone involved. Task directors should provide suitable mechanical hoists for elevating oversized equipment. Installation teams should use properly designed scaffolding or platforms when handling wide materials and keep the work area clear of unnecessary personnel. Inside this residential garage, a man steps beneath a motorized door as the lower edge catches him unexpectedly. Moving mechanical barriers require adequate clearance before people pass beneath them. Walking underneath a rising door can lead to misjudging the available space, particularly when the panel is still in motion. Contact with the moving structure can cause a person to lose balance and create a serious fall hazard. Property residents should wait for automated doors to reach their fully open position before passing underneath. High above this residential yard, a man operates a saw from an unsupported frame as a cut branch suddenly shifts and destabilizes the setup. Using an unstable frame while cutting overhead branches creates significant fall and equipment hazards. When a branch separates, its weight can shift unexpectedly and affect nearby supports or equipment. A moving branch may also contact the frame and cause it to become unstable. Arborists should use suitable elevated work platforms or bucket lifts for high canopy trimming. Site planners should clearly identify drop zones and keep people and equipment away from areas where falling branches could move unexpectedly. At this crowded storage facility, an elevated forklift carries a massive crate as the machine suddenly becomes unstable and begins tipping sideways. Raising or extending heavy cargo can shift a forklift's center of gravity and reduce its stability. If the load becomes too high or extends beyond the machine's rated capacity, the forklift may lean or overturn unexpectedly. This creates a serious hazard for nearby workers and pedestrians, especially around the potential movement path of the machine and its load. Machine controllers must keep loads within the manufacturer's rated capacity and lower them appropriately during movement. Pedestrians should stay outside designated forklift operating zones and maintain a safe distance from active lifts. To keep learning from these important workplace safety lessons, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Stay aware, stay safe.